me for my voice, but I have never seen anything like it.
Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Andrew Zimmel, your host, as always. Jam-packed episode today. We're starting off with the NFL. We got a little bit of news out of San Francisco and Christian McCaffrey's new deal. And at the end of the podcast, I want to talk a little bit about Kyle Larson, the NASCAR driver, I should say former disgraced NASCAR driver, and what that ripple is going to do to NASCAR, and a little bit more about this TV show I'm watching. You might have heard of it, The Wire. I'm going to tell you why it's so good and what I have been missing out on for years. But first, I need to remind you that Alexander Haynes is going to be on the podcast later on the week. He's going to tell us a little bit more about COVID-19. He's going to give us our weekly coronavirus update. I hope all of you had a safe and healthy Easter. I didn't see a ton of people not social distancing. I saw a lot of people, even though it kind of stinks being in your home, staying in your apartment, being with immediate family that you're with all the time is going to save a lot more lives. It's a hassle right now, but it's a good thing to do for the time being. That said, big news in the sporting world. Before we get all the other big news, the biggest news, I think, is that Donald Trump, President Trump, has said that he's trying to bring sports back. And, guys like Bill Simmons, Jacoby, those guys on that side of the media have always joked about the sports czar. If there was a czar of sports, somebody who was in charge of all sports. And it was an idea that got kicked around for the last 5-6 years, but now it's finally happening. All the commissioners in the major sporting, the professional sports, are going to be on this board, along with a former, I think, presidential candidate, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, Mark Cuban. He will be on the panel as well to kind of figure out how we get sports moving forward. Why is that such a big deal for you and me? Well, you get more cleaner, fresher content. You're not going to get the 1998 NBA championship. You're not going to get a rerun of the Super Bowl. We're not going to have to watch Kobe's last game. Look, you remember when Kobe passed away, on his untimely passing, I was one of the first people to mourn. Long time. It still hurts to think that Kobe isn't with us anymore. But can I just say that he had a lot better, more impactful, more memorable games than just his 60-point game. If I have to watch his final game one more time, like ESPN, NBA TV, Twitter, because you guys are doing some stuff, YouTube, you guys are doing some stuff, NBA, you guys are doing some stuff, stop it, please. He's got the 81-point game is available for you. All of those championship runs with the Lakers, those are available to you. Why are we watching the 60-point game over and over and over again? Especially considering that he scored 60 points in 3 quarters one time against the Dallas Mavericks. Why are we not seeing these games? All right, moving on. Sports are coming back, hopefully. We'll talk to Alexander about it tomorrow a little bit more. Let's talk about the NFL, because that is really the funny thing. And we're going to start with the lighter news, and then we're going to get to McCaffrey's deal. 49ers, doctors are saying now, by losing the Super Bowl, you're going to get a kick out of the story. By losing the Super Bowl, scientists in California are hypothesizing, are theorizing, are saying that because the 49ers lost, there wasn't a championship parade. Because there wasn't a championship parade, the coronavirus didn't spread because there was large groups of people. So, in part, the 49ers losing the Super Bowl may have helped the city of San Francisco, the area, the Bay Area. It might have helped them prevent a coronavirus outbreak like we saw in Seattle. Why is that so funny? Well, you look at the accolades that a guy like Patrick Mahomes has had so far in his young career. This is his 4th year in the league. He's already an MVP. He's already been called the next Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Tom Brady. He's getting compared to all these great, historic NFL quarterbacks. He's a Pro Bowler. He's an All-Pro. He's a Super Bowl MVP. He's led not one but 2 incredible, memorable, once-in-a-lifetime, may I add, once-in-a-lifetime playoff comebacks. He's done all of this. And now he gets another accolade. Now he's the guy that prevented the coronavirus from spreading in California. Little did 49ers fans know at the time when Patrick Mahomes was coming back and winning a Super Bowl for the city of Kansas City. Little did they know at the time that this was actually, in the long run, in the long play, great for San Francisco, great for their city. Now, this is really where the debate shows go. This is where First Take, where Undisputed, where Talk Radio, this is where they're really going to get to go in on it, because this is the debate now. Would you rather, and this, it's kind of silly, would you rather have a Super Bowl championship, parade, comeback, ticker tape, everything? Would you rather have a Super Bowl victory, the parade and all, or not have your city deal with the coronavirus? Now, you're thinking to yourself, well, Zimmel, it's pretty easy. I would rather sacrifice, my happiness, my sports pleasure, my bliss for the health, the well-being of my city. But while I can see that is a very good point, it's a very, high horse take, I can say this, that if it was me, somebody living in Texas who's rooting for the Minnesota Vikings, I think Minnesota has a pretty good healthcare system. I might be willing to risk it. Now, is that right? No. But I'm a selfish person. We're in week 5 of quarantine. I haven't seen a live sporting event since Texas State beat App State a month ago now. That's really all I'm looking for at this point, is my sports bliss, my sports nirvana. And, as somebody who has not had a Super Bowl victory, the Chiefs hadn't had one for 50 years, might be willing to flip the coin. All right, let's move on to Christian McCaffrey. ESPN reports, Adam Schefter reports, largest deal for a running back, the most lucrative deal, 4 years, $16 million a year. I'm going to tell you why that's a good thing for Carolina and why it's so much different than a Ezekiel Elliott deal or some of these other deals these NFL running backs are getting. The 2017 NFL draft is different from a lot of drafts in the past. The reason it's so different is because of the quarterbacks that were drafted. Mitchell Trubisky went number 2 overall, and 8 picks later, Mahomes goes, and 2 picks after that, Deshaun Watson goes. And if you have watched an NFL playoff game in the last 2 years, you have seen the names on the screen. You've seen Trubisky versus Mahomes versus Watson. You've seen it over and over and over again. And the Chicago Bears continue to get railed. They continue to get crucified for this pick. That how do you draft Trubisky over the NFL MVP, Patrick Mahomes, or another incredible talent like Deshaun Watson? But a team that's not getting enough, I don't want to say criticism, but scrutiny, I think, needs to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. Because at the same time that Trubisky went number 2, Leonard Fournette went number 4. And I've been on the record before, and I'll be on the record again, telling you that drafting a running back in the top 4, top 5 picks isn't beneficial to your franchise. The Dallas Cowboys thought it was going to work with Ezekiel Elliott, and we're going to get to why that contract's so much different than McCaffrey's in a second. But he goes number 4 overall to Jacksonville. Immediately, he deals with ankle issues. Immediately, it's shown that he's not in college anymore. Dorothy, we're not in Kansas anymore. Leonard Fournette can't run the way that we thought Leonard Fournette could run. He can't do it. He was a grown man playing a college game, but now he's a grown man playing with other grown men. And you compare him to Christian McCaffrey, who in college, when he was playing at Stanford, I thought he was the best college athlete, not football player, college athlete in the NCAA. I was on the record saying that I thought that he needed to be a Heisman winner. He got invited to New York twice. He left New York empty-handed twice. He comes out of college, and I thought that he was going to be one of the, if not the most special talents. Not only because he could run the ball, he was quick, he could move, he was agile. I'd seen him make 5-10 yard runs on what would have been a 1 or 2 yard run for a lot of other running backs. And you can credit guys like Michael Lombardi, you can credit guys like that for kind of predicting it early, but I think all the way in 2017 we saw that the running game in the NFL was changing rapidly. That we knew that it wasn't going to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust anymore. That teams were figuring out ways to make the short passing game replacing the run. And Christian McCaffrey has been the prototypical running back for that new revolution. Christian McCaffrey, in a lot of ways, is comparable to Steph Curry to me. And you're going to sit back and listen to this real quick, because this is where the comparison goes. The way that Curry took 2 or 3 years to really revolutionize the game of basketball, and then finally winning his first MVP in 2015. McCaffrey took 2 or 3 years to really fit in with the offense that Carolina was running. That Carolina had a offensive player in Cam Newton that they had built their entire offense around. And now McCaffrey comes in, and because of injuries, and also because he's just God-given talent, he surpassed Newton as the guy that you need to set your offense up around. This past season, the entire offense was on McCaffrey's shoulders. He's about 5'10". He's a little bit of an electric player when he's coming out of the huddle. That when you're watching him on Sunday Ticket, when you're watching him on CBS, on NBC, you're looking for him. When they come out of the huddle, you're looking, is he lined up at slot? Is he going to be out of the backfield? How is Carolina going to utilize his talent? The same way that Golden State, when they were on those incredible runs, when you're watching them on television, you're looking at Steph Curry coming out of the huddle. Oh, this guy's electric. What's he going to do with the ball? Every time the ball's in his hand, you know something special is going to happen. And that is what Christian McCaffrey has been. That's what McCaffrey has been for Carolina. Now, why is his deal different than Zeke's? Well, it comes down to 2 things. The first thing is, I think McCaffrey's game ages better. I think that you can have a guy like McCaffrey line up in the slot. You can play him in a Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola type of role, where you can't do that with Zeke. You can have McCaffrey get hand the ball off to him 10, 15 times a game, but then you can use him in different ways. You can use him in the passing game. You can use him as a decoy. You can do all these type of things. Zeke, on the other hand, is when he's in the backfield, he might catch a short pass from Dak. He might do a little bit of a move in the backfield, but for the most part, Zeke is a bowling ball type runner. He's going to lower his head. He's going to run over people. And McCaffrey's game, it just isn't that. And I think that saves him the injuries. I think that that's going to prolong his career. The second thing, and this is why it's different, is that McCaffrey, and you might hate me for this, but I'm telling you, he's a company man. And as a fan of an NFL team, I like that. Now, when you look at different players and you think player empowerment, you're saying, this guy deserves this money, and he should do whatever it takes to get that money. Zeke wasn't going to show up to training camp. Dak Prescott's not talking to the Cowboys. These guys are looking for their money. They're in it for, I deserve this amount of money. Where McCaffrey is different is that he knows he deserves that amount of money. He's the most talented offensive player outside of maybe Michael Thomas in that division. And he knows that. He didn't sit out. He didn't hold out. Carolina gave him this contract. And I guarantee you his agent worked on it a little bit. But for the most part, McCaffrey didn't make a big fuss in the media. McCaffrey wasn't on Jim Rome's show. He wasn't on First Take. He wasn't on all these different shows lobbying to get a new contract. He showed up to work like you and I do. Lunch pail in hand, hard hat on, went to work, wowed us on the field, made us a lot of money in fantasy football, went home. And he is now the highest paid running back, but I still think that he's the most underrated player in the National Football League. I don't think that there is a single player in the league today that does more for their team offensively outside of the quarterback position than Christian McCaffrey does for the Carolina Panthers. So this is why this contract makes sense. That even when you say a running back doesn't need to be drafted in the first round, they're a dime a dozen. A running back doesn't need to be drafted in the top 10. You can get him in the third or fourth round. Even when we had guys come on the show over and over and over again telling us about this wide receiver is so great and this running back is so talented that I said we need to hold that off. I don't care how good CeeDee Lamb is. I don't care how good some of these running backs are. I'm not drafting him that high in the draft. But this is where McCaffrey is the exception, not the rule. Because Leonard Fournette doesn't work in Jacksonville. Because Ezekiel Elliott hasn't worked in Dallas. Because the other running backs drafted in this draft were more talented than Fournette, have had better careers than Fournette, and were drafted in the second and third round. You got guys like Delvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara was a third-round pick. Kareem Hunt was a third-round pick. James Conner was a third-round pick. There's plenty of guys who went way, way, way down. Talented running backs. Pro Bowl running backs. Who teams knew were going to be there. If you redid the draft in 2017, you'd be hard-pressed to find any player outside of maybe Patrick Mahomes, maybe outside Deshaun Watson, who's offensively more talented than Christian McCaffrey. And going forward, this isn't going to be the rule. The same way that he is an exception on drafting running backs, the same way that he was an exception in college, the way that he played, he's an exception in contract negotiations. Because there's not going to be another player like McCaffrey in the next couple drafts. I promise you that. All right, moving on to NASCAR. This is a story that broke yesterday, and I was very interested in it. And I texted around. I talked to some of my friends who are big NASCAR fans. I will admittedly say I'm not a NASCAR fan. I've never been a real big NASCAR fan, but I do this because I am the sports prez, because I do kind of keep an eye on all things sports. I keep up with NASCAR, but I keep up with their fan base. And I'll tell you why. Because I think you can tell a lot about a team and about a city by the way that their fans act. When the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, outside of a couple knuckleheads on Twitter who continue to down talk and downgrade my talented, wonderful, young quarterback, Lamar Jackson, who I'm absolutely enthralled with. I love the way that he plays. Outside of a couple knuckleheads on Twitter, Kansas City fans were very nice. They're very nice fans. It's a nice midtown city, midwestern city, and it made sense. When the Vikings went to the NFC Championship game 3 years ago, played in Philadelphia, the thing that all the writers wrote about, the thing that everybody talked about was how nice the Vikings fans were going to Philadelphia. And the story coming out of that was how awful the Eagles fans were. And we knew Philly fans are, for the most part, pretty hardened people. So it doesn't shock me. But here's the thing about NASCAR. And this is what makes it different from pretty much any other pro sport. Maybe esports, maybe golf, maybe tennis. But for the most part, NASCAR is kind of its own deal. This is what makes it different, is that you don't have a regional fan base. If a guy's from a city, if a guy's from an area, say you're from Texas, say you're from Georgia, and you have a race car driver from the state of Texas, from the state of Georgia, and you have state pride, yeah, that might be a guy you align with. But I know for me, when I'm watching NASCAR, I'm honestly picking whatever flavor candy I like the most and whatever insurance agency had the funniest commercial before the race. It's not hard. It's not hard to do. And I'll put it on as I do other things. I'll put it on a TV, put it on a computer screen as I'm doing other things. But for the most part, I'm not keeping up with it. But a guy goes by the name of Kyle Larson. He was fired Tuesday by his racing company after budding as one of the biggest stars that NASCAR had. After he stuttered, threw out there a racial slur during a live stream viral race that was then watched by one of the sponsors who dropped him. Sponsors dropped him left and right. It was an iRacing event Sunday night when he appeared to lose communication with a spotter on his headset. During a check on his microphone, Larson said, "You can't hear me," and then followed by the N-word. He said on Monday, there's no excuse. He apologized to everybody. The entire playbook that you do when you get caught saying something like that. Now, what does it say about NASCAR? What does it say about Kyle? What does it say about the entirety of the NASCAR racing community? Well, it's hard because I don't think Kyle Larson's a racist. You can go on Twitter, you can go on Facebook, you can go on all these different social sites. Look, of anybody you know, of any podcast you listen to, odds are I'm probably the biggest sports social justice warrior that you know. An SSJW is what I call myself. And something like this happens, immediately my phone lights up, my friends' phones light up, the group chats start, we start breaking it down. But I don't have friends that are into NASCAR. I don't have guys who are watching NASCAR events. That's not our scene. That's not what we talk about. That's not what we do. Okay? So I had to reach out to people that I knew, some of the other guys that I kind of talked to get a scoop, get my finger on the pulse. And for the most part, everybody agreed with me. This guy's not a racist. This guy said racist stuff. And I think that those are two different things. I think that you can be ignorant. I think you can say dumb stuff. I would never say it. You would never say it. But people say dumb stuff all the time. And this guy said something astronomically stupid. Should he lose his sponsors? Look, we live in a capitalist country. Corporations do whatever corporations want to do. Corporations run this place. So far be it for me to say that his sponsors should stick it out with him. But at the same time, kind of hard for me to say to them, hey, you should drop him. Okay? Now, was this the first time that something like this happened? Is there repeat offenders? Is this something that we've seen happen a lot? Another thing that I think people need to know about Larson is that, and this comes up a lot, he's half Japanese. His grandparents spent time in internment camps in California during World War II. Okay? He's part of the Drive for Diversity program. Like I said, I don't think that this guy is racist. I think that he just did something stupid, and I would not be shocked. Tony Stewart owns the racing company that he was racing for. We know who Tony Stewart is. We know the background that he has. I would not be shocked if he is not back on the circuit before too long. Would not surprise me at all. That's the way that these things go. It's cyclical. We know that. But what does this say about NASCAR fans? Because that is what we need to be breaking down here. Not if Kyle Larson's racist. Not if Kyle Larson's an idiot, because he is. It's what is the fan base like? And that's where it gets toxic. And this is the other thing. Well, this is a disclaimer to anybody who's on social media. You know that what people are saying on social media does not tell the full story. That you are getting a peek hole through somebody's thoughts. This isn't and they don't speak for everybody. This isn't what the entire tribe says. This is what one person's saying on a social media site. Okay? So, when NASCAR fans come out of the woodwork to say that it's fine, he shouldn't be punished, this isn't that big of a deal, everybody says the word, I sing it in rap songs, When that all happens, an outside view from an SSJW, from a level of what people who don't follow the sport that closely, because let's be honest, the guys that are talking about it on ESPN, they don't know what they're talking about. Stephen A. Smith's not watching NASCAR. Shannon Sharp, Skip Bayless, they're not watching NASCAR. It gives a look to a sport that has an uphill battle in a lot of parts of this country. When you think NASCAR, you think Daisy Dukes, you think General Lee's, you think Dukes of Hazzard. You're not really thinking about analytics. You're not really thinking about advanced metrics. You're not really thinking about some of these things that you put with your favorite sport. But that's wrong, first and foremost. There's a lot of math. There's a lot of advanced analytics that goes into the sport of NASCAR. Okay? But when you're on Twitter and you're only getting a sneak peek, you're only getting a peephole through what this perceived group is thinking, your views can be swayed. Your opinions can be formulated before you really know what's happening. When I talk to my NASCAR friends, when I talk to my friends who follow the sport closely, they will all say the same thing, that Kyle's dumb, that this should never have happened, that he deserves the punishment he gets, but at the same time, don't punish the rest of NASCAR fans. Don't pin us all that we're racist because if we had one driver say one thing dumb. And the other thing that isn't helping the sport is that we're on quarantine. There's nothing else better to talk about. So we're stuck talking about this guy who said something dumb. All right, before we end the show, I need to tell you about The Wire. It's on HBO, but you can get it if you have Hulu. You know I've been plugging Hulu all year. You can get it if you have Hulu. HBO has opened up their movie library, their TV library, to a lot of these other streaming sites because of COVID-19, because of the coronavirus. Because we can't go out, because we can't socialize with people, they have said, here's all of our content, please watch. I have signed up. I'm all the way in, and I decided to start with The Wire. This is a show that I had heard a lot of good things about, but I'd never personally checked out. Van in Jamel Hill on The Ringer, Spotify, if you listen on Spotify, they have a podcast called The Wire Into the Hole. And that's coming out, I think, same day this podcast is coming out. It's going to be pretty good. I'm very excited. But that's kind of the other reason I really wanted to get into it. They're doing a breakdown step-by-step, game-by-game kind of thing. I can get into it. So I watched season 1 in 4 days. It was 13 episodes, about an hour a piece, and I knocked it out in 4 days because it sucks me in. It's about Baltimore police, clearly in Baltimore, working on bringing down this drug gang, this drug ring in the city. Deals with wiretaps, a la the name. I cannot recommend it higher. Like, this is one of the very few shows that when I say it's 5 out of 5, can't miss television, it is can't miss television. If you have a chance to watch it, you need to. That's going to do it for the show. I'll come back again tomorrow to talk about come back again tomorrow to talk to Alexander Haynes about COVID-19, about the coronavirus, and all the other news that's happening. Thank you so much for listening, and be safe.